Welcome back to the conference. We are starting with our next panel session. And this is the panel session about philosophical perspectives of hate speech in and for Asia. As the moderator, we have Taro Mochizuki from Osaka University. We also have Izumi from Nanzan University. We have Kanit Sirichan from Chulalongkorn University, welcome. And we have Sam Toon from the University of Yangon. And then our last member of the panel is Taro Oga from Kyushu University. So as you can see, we have Kanit here with us, but the rest of the panel will be online joining. Welcome, all of you. Thank you for joining us in this conference. And then I actually would like to hand over now to Professor Taro to moderate the panel.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you very much for joining us at this panel. And I'm joining from Osaka, Japan. Okay, so first of all, let me introduce you to our panel. Hate speech is a phenomenon that takes various forms. For each phenomenon of hate speech, it is depending on geopolitics, culture, and society of the place where it happens to take a particular kind of form following the context. Generally, hate speech is the language of hate in whatever form it takes, that expresses hatred toward individuals or groups of people on the basis of race, ethnicity, social class, gender, sexual orientation, religion, age, disability, or any other similar grounds. As long as it is language, it has meaning. So, it can be discussed theoretically in the field of philosophy of language. The meaning of hate speech can also be figured out mostly against historically generated language use or the national discourses of the country where the speech is made. Today, the participants in our panel are joining from different countries of Asia, and they will analyze how the meaning of such and such derogatory expressions to be constructed, viewing it from philosophical perspectives. Professor Dr. Izumi, who joins us from Nanzan University, Japan, will treat the semantics of dojin as a slur put on the local ethnic minority in Okinawa, Japan. He puts it in the hierarchical linguistic structure of Japanese language. Professor Dr. Kanit Sirichan, joining us from Chulalongkorn University, Thailand, will discuss what the reality of the pejoratives that are used in hate speech is, referring to some typical slurs in Thai language. She approaches the phenomenon of hate speech theoretically from the viewpoint of analytic philosophy that she specializes in. Professor Dr. Sam Toon from the University of Yangon, Myanmar, will question the relation of hate speech and power politics in Myanmar. He focuses on contemporary political history of Myanmar after the general election in 1990, when military junta rejected the results of election and nationalist groups started to make hate speech against Aung San Suu Kyi, leader of NLD, who actually won the election. Another speaker, Professor Toru Oga, will join us from Kyushu University, Japan, in the end as a discussant. Each speaker has 15 minutes to talk and then 5 minutes for questions and answers following his or her talk. Now, I'll pass my microphone to the first speaker, Professor Dr. Izumi from Nanzan University, Japan. Izumi Sensei, please go ahead.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. And so, excuse me, so can you hear me well? So can I use, okay, so I can use, I can share my slides. Just please hang on 1 second. Okay, so what can you see? So can you see my notes as well? Yes?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so then I have to, how do I? Okay, now what do you see? Do you only see slides?
Now I see slides only, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, let me begin my presentation. So yeah, so thank you very much for the introduction and for this opportunity. So I teach philosophy and linguistics at Nanzan University, Japan. So I want to focus on, I want to talk about racial and ethnic slurs from philosophical and linguistic perspectives. So the topic of my presentation is the semantics of racial and ethnic slurs. And I want to focus on one particular word, one particular Japanese word, dojin, which is a derogatory noun that roughly corresponds to words like aboriginal, native, local people, etc., roughly speaking. So here is how I want to proceed. So first, I want to give a little bit of background referring to a certain incident that took place in Okinawa, Japan, several years ago. And second, I want to introduce a little bit of linguistics, discussing what grammarians call honorifics and anti-honorifics in Japanese. And on the basis of that discussion, I want to present my own proposal about the meaning of the word dojin and discuss a few implications of that. So can you also see the cursor that I have over the slide? Okay, so this is the main Okinawa island, which is located in southwest of Japan. So it's in between, well, Taiwan and mainland Japan. And of course, it's closer to China and other countries in the region. So it's in the very important geographical location in the region. So partly because of that, it has had a really long, complicated relationship with Japan and other countries as well. So Okinawa is historically known as Ryukyu. And Ryukyu used to be an independent kingdom until the 19th century. And around that time, Japan basically took control of Ryukyu and then turned it into Okinawa prefecture, okay, by force. And also in the 20th century, the Battle of Okinawa in Pacific War killed half of the entire population of the island. And today, Okinawa prefecture overall constitutes a very tiny fraction of the entire land of Japan, below 1%. However, Okinawa prefecture hosts nearly 70% of the US military facilities that exist the entirety of Japan. So undeniably, there is a sense of unfairness shared among the people living in Okinawa. And today, I want to talk about an incident that took place in this region of the mainland Okinawa. So in 2016, based on an agreement between Washington and Tokyo, so the Japanese government was going to build several helipads nearby Higashi's residential area. So white dots represent the locations on which the new helipads were being constructed. And so they are very close to the residential area. So there are schools nearby. So understandably, there had been protests against the construction of the new helipads. And so to discourage protesters, the government brought in many riot police officers from around the nation. And on October 18th of 2016, during one of the protests over the helipads, one police officer insulted protesters using the ethnic slur dojin, okay? And the scene was filmed and widely criticized. People were pretty upset about the remark. The officer underwent a kind of disciplinary action available in Japan's police force. So the officer was reprimanded for making an inappropriate and imprudent remark, whatever that means. But that's it. So nothing very serious. And authorities, including then cabinet members and the governor of Osaka, at that time, essentially denied that the remark was discriminatory or racist at all. So some of the reasons mentioned, raised at the time, included things like that the officer, well, didn't know, had no knowledge of the word, or the officer had no discriminatory intention at all. The officer was just upset, okay? Well, so now let me give a little bit of the word dojin itself. So as far as I know, so many dictionaries define it indeed as merely expressing the meaning of local person or land person, okay? So the word dojin is written in this way. So they just stand for land and people, okay? And it's been used, for many, centuries. And so it's used as meaning local residents, at least since 8th century. However, well, so there's a clear sense of derogation associated with that. In the 19th century, the people started using it to refer to peoples in Japanese colonies, which have derogatory connotations, which may have included things like being peripheral, uncivilized, barbaric, etc. And this is one, just an example I put out from all the newspapers, okay? And in the 20th century, so it's been used time and time as a pejorative expression thrown at people in Okinawa. Okinawans had been discriminated explicitly, especially in mainland Japan, regarding housing, occupation, etc. And in the 21st century, it's now currently extensively used in occurrences of hateful rhetorics, especially on the internet, when they are targeted at people in Okinawa. Okay. So what is alarming is that what journalist Koichi Yasuda describes as Okinawa shift. Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, so Japanese government passed a new legislation on hate speech in 2016. However, that legislation was written primarily for ethnic Koreans in Japan. So it doesn't really talk about Okinawan residents. So now, hate speech against ethnic Koreans is technically illegal. So, well, people sort of started throwing the hateful rhetorics at Okinawans. So that's being described by journalist Yasuda. Okay, so that's a little bit of background about how word dojin is used in the current context in Japan. So let me raise a few questions. So I hope I have minutes to discuss some of these. So what is the meaning of the word dojin, and how is it different from more neutral phrase, say local person or local people, local residents, okay? We of course know that this is a derogatory expression, but why is it derogatory? So what mechanisms underlie its functions? I think Kanit also will address some of these issues. So hopefully there will be some interaction. And here's my answer today. So my proposal is that the word dojin is what I call an anti-honorific expression, and thereby it introduces hierarchical thinking. Okay, there are other aspects of racial slurs and ethnic slurs, but I want to focus on this aspect of the word dojin today. Okay, so now let's switch gears. I want to start talking about, I want to do a little bit of linguistics, and I want to talk about honorifics and anti-honorifics. All right, so let's say I want to report a certain fact. So, and I have many options. So sentence 1 in Japanese is, a neutral sentence describing a certain fact. Okay, so it says a certain person arrived. So here's Professor Mochizuki, and one says he arrived, and that's it. Okay, but I could also use a different form of sentence 1, namely 2. So the details are not important. This isn't a linguistics talk. So, so expressions in red are basically polite forms of the same noun and the verb. So I can sprinkle a few honorific expressions and change the form of 1, and I get 2. And the 2 reports the same fact. So 2 just says, Professor Mochizuki arrived, but it says so in a more polite way, and it has a different connotation than 1. So the speaker, in this case me, is apparently socially inferior to the person who is described in this sentence. Okay, the speaker is socially inferior to Mochizuki. Okay, so this sentence, by the use of these small, random expressions, the sentence says a lot more than what it describes, the fact it describes. I would have a different option. So I could also use anti-honorifics instead of honorifics. Anti-honorifics have the same functions as honorifics, but in the so anti-honorifics go in the other direction, so to speak. So again, 1 is a neutral form reporting a certain event or fact, and 2 is a polite form because it contains honorifics, and 3 is we can say an impolite form of 1, so because it contains anti-honorifics. And I wouldn't, dare to, pronounce 3 in front of Professor Mochizuki, right? Because I'm junior to him. So basically, it reports a fact that he arrived, just as 1 does, while swearing at him. So it would mean something like Mochizuki, that you can insert your favorite swear word, arrived. Okay, so the speaker implication is that the speaker clearly despises Mochizuki. The speaker tries to put the person in question down. Okay, just to summarize, so sentences 1, 2, and 3, they are in the neutral, honorific, and anti-honorific forms, and they are in some sense they mean the same thing because they are equivalent in terms of what fact they describe, but they additionally signify hierarchical relations between the speaker and the subject. Okay, so now let me turn to my own proposal. So the word dojin is an anti-honorific expression that signifies a hierarchical relation between the speaker and the target of description. Well, how do we know? So because we don't have much time, so let me skip this part, but there are diagnostic tests for honorifics and anti-honorifics, and I can assure you that the word dojin can pass those tests. Okay, so here's one test, but let me go to implications. Okay, so the one implication I think we can obtain from my account is that the contents of honorifics and anti-honorifics are not quite claimed or asserted by the speaker, but assumed or taken for granted by the users of honorifics and anti-honorifics. So like I said, I would use the polite form of sentence 1 if I need to address Professor Mochizuki or anyone, okay? Because there is a certain social relation between him and me, okay? If I'm speaking to, say, a little baby or small child, I wouldn't use honorifics. Or if I were using honorifics, that would sound horrible. That would sound very unacceptable. Or I would be taken to be joking or just trying to be humorous, okay? Honorifics and anti-honorifics are unacceptable unless there is the signified relations indeed exist, at least from the perspective of the speaker. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, so the word dojin couldn't be used without assuming a hierarchical relation. So whether the hearer liked it or not, the hierarchical relation was taken for granted by the speaker of that expression, okay? So the hierarchical relation was supposed to exist, at least from the perspective of the user of the word dojin. And then that content wasn't even suggested or claimed. It was basically imposed non-negotiably by the user. So that was a very insidious conversational move, I would say. Okay, so I think I'm running almost out of time. So we have only 15 minutes, right? So, and also here's let me just finish quickly. So here's another implication among others. So no one is really able to articulate what an honorific expression means, because it's very difficult to define or precisely determine what it's supposed to mean. Okay, it's difficult to pick it up. So if what dojin is an anti-honorific, so of course it's very difficult to know precisely what it means, or no one can really is able to describe what it means. So, well, I didn't know what that means. It's a poor excuse. At least we can say that. All right, so that's it. Thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Izumi. So now we have 2 or 3 minutes for questions and answers. So if you have any questions to Professor Izumi, please feel free to pose your questions.
Should I use microphone as well?
Ajahn Kanit, please.
Yes. Thank you, for
Thank you.
the presentation. Yeah. Actually, this is the second time I listened to your talk on this topic, and this time I understand more than last time. Well, it seems like you are now trying to explain that. Well, your question is why is the term dojin is derogatory terms, right? And what is the mechanism which produced this derogatory effect? Now you explain it in a way that it seems like there is the part of the fact concerning the meaning of the term, and another part is on the connotative meaning. And the connotative meaning is something to do with the assumption about social relation, that is a hierarchical social relation. I was wondering how, there is something like 2 parts here. Your explanation is like what we call, it's like a dualist explanation. You have 2 parts. But how would you explain that, how these 2 parts fit together? Somebody can just use the term and understand the term descriptively, like the literal meaning.
Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah, very interesting question. Thank you. So that's part of the reason why I compare a racial slur or ethnic slur with an honorific expression in Japanese. So an honorific expression in Japanese is also has dual meaning, right? So it at least has two functions. So one is to purely descriptive. So I can describe the event of Professor Mochizuki arriving, and then so my polite way of saying that has that function. So my polite way of saying Professor Mochizuki arriving has a descriptive aspect indeed. But at the same time, I'm doing that while I'm putting down myself in a ladder of social hierarchy and then raising the status of Professor Mochizuki by using a particular expression, right? So it go like, you know, yeah, so definitely it has like a dual nature, but it nicely fits into a single expression in the case of an honorific. And then so that like interesting linguistic feature is sort of, you know, taken advantage by a slur. So that's my idea. And then, yeah, and then you can use like some formal models to analyze an honorific, and maybe you can apply that same way to slur. So yeah, so the duality is a key, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, shall we move on? Okay, so the next speaker is Professor Dr. Kanit Sirichan from Chulalongkorn University. Okay, Ajahn Kanit, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Ajahn Taro. Okay, so first of all, thanks for the Asia Center for organizing this meeting, this conference, and thanks Professor Taro for managing and organizing everything for us for the panel to be possible. Now, my slide is not quite good. I mean, it's not so simple enough. I think sorry. The slide is too academic, and I just try to talk in a way which make the general audience understand my key point. Well, this is the paper that I try to understand the offensiveness of derogatory term or pejoratives in the language which is used in hate speech. And the debate is like that Izumi has already presented. The debate in philosophy of language is that people try to understand the idea of, why and how this offensiveness comes fixed with the meaning of the term. Now, my presentation is just, I'm going to just summarize the paper that I'm going to write for the proceedings of the conference. Now, I start with the definition first, just to scope my understanding of what is pejoratives that are used in hate speech. Of course, in the legal context, I'm not going to read this. I think most of us know already that in legal context, what is the definition of it? The interesting thing, I think, is in the phrase, it can instigate. It can instigate violence or harm, target person or group. I think this one that I like to focus on. From this definition, there are 2 points that I like to raise. The first point is actually quite like what Lawrence said in the former earlier panel. I think he mentioned the same Brown, the works of Brown, the same one, that we can study concept of hate speech out of legal context. That is, we just study of it as ordinary concept. And also in the work of Jennifer Hornsby, who is a feminist philosopher, she also suggests that we don't need to study this concept within legal context, but we can treat it as a political morality. So we can talk about the normative aspect of the hate speech phenomena. So that is one point. The second point is that according to Brown, Brown looks at, I think he focused his study on the concept of hate speech as the study about the myth of hatred, which is like an emotional state which is behind the speech that are used. But I don't think this is quite right, because hate speech, sometimes you can just express it without being the feeling of hate. I mean, people sometimes just use it to control behavior of people who, you know, they don't approve of their behavior. So it's just like, you know, a weapon or an instrument to control behavior. So we don't need to, you know, focus much on the feeling of hate. I think the focus should be on the concept of harm instead. So how to understand this then? If we focus, you know, you should shift the focus from hate to harm. So it means that we need to focus on the part which concern action, on the part which is like the consequence of the use of the speech. Now, these are just examples of Thai slurs, which I don't think that I need to go into details. This morning, we have heard some words. And I talk also in my question to the panelists also. In my view, to talk about slurs, you need to separate into parts two types. The first one is the kind of hate speech which use pejorative language or slurs or derogatory term, impolite term. And there is also another type that is the kind of speech that you don't need to use pejorative terms. Like you can use poetic language or metaphorical language, but the content or the meaning of the term is so offensive. But I will focus only on the kind of hate speech which are expressed in pejorative terms. There are some terms here that this morning Kun Supinya and Ajahn Wasin talk about Slim, but Slim is not so, it means the yellow shirt people, conservative people, which is created, I think the one who created the word is the yellow shirt people or the conservative themselves. And the word which the yellow shirt or the conservative use against the opposite side is Kwai Dang. This is more offensive. Kwai Dang means buffalo, red buffalo. It means just, you know, very stupid, poor people and stupid. These are political slurs. There are also gender slurs, which are very popular. The word which is equal to slut in English language, ignorant or something. And then also the term about transgender women. I think it's quite like faggot. Can I remember the term faggot or something in English language? And racial slurs. The Thai people seems to be rather racist. They have all slurs about other races, other different races. Okay, so these are just examples of Thai slurs. Now, the interesting things is this, which is, I think it's, the interesting point is concerns the phenomenon of English language or Thai language and probably in other language as well, that is, there is this offensiveness. So there are always two components of slurs. The first one is descriptive and the other is the derogatory one or the offensive meaning. But then the puzzle is about these offensive meanings. Now, there is a puzzle, but to understand this puzzle, we need to understand first that usually when we use words or proper names or general names, we use it under the principle of the distinction between use and mention. Like when I talk when somebody asks me, or when I ask someone to tell me the word, the slur word, or the pejorative term, nobody would like to say it because they feel the fear of the being to offend others. Now, but usually when we use the term, we use it, you know, like if I said Taro Mochizuki, this is proper name, I use it just refer directly to Taro Mochizuki. He's a Descartes scholar. But if I mention the name Taro Mochizuki, it's just like I said, or Bilen said that Taro Mochizuki is a Descartes scholar. This is to mention the term, not to use the term. So it's different between use and mention. But look at here, in the case of pejoratives puzzle, you don't have this principle. It's breakdown. It breaks down. There are two directions that the pejorative, that the use mention distinction is broken down. The first dimension is preservation, offensive power preservation. Like, for example, if you use a negative sentence, like the word, you know, you try to deny that somebody is not that, that the slur that is used. For example, like she's not slut, or he's Afro-American, but he does not behave like a nigger. She's poor, but she's a slut. All these are so offensive, even though you try to use it in a negative sentence, and also in an indirect speech also, this is always offensive. So in this case, the offensive power is always preserved, even though you mentioned it, not using it. Okay, so that is the first dimension. The second dimension is there is the case that the offensive power is destroyed. That is the case of the appropriation. The appropriation means the case where, you know, the victim try to reclaim the term, like Boston slut walk. You know, the girls are just throw the you know, the word slut and call themselves, I am slut, and, you know, this is just appropriate the term. And this, just like, you know, it seems to destroy the offensive meaning. This is the first situation. The second situation is in the situation of making sense of, you know, making joke, humor, especially I think in Asian countries, I don't know, but in Thailand, when you talk about hate speech, you know, people don't really take it so serious. They think that you can just make joke about other people. And I think they think if you can do that, it means that it expresses the sense of very close friend, a camaraderie. But I think this case is rather complicated, so I will not focus on this case of sense of humor. I think the appropriation case is better to look at. Now, so those are the puzzle. So how to understand the offensiveness of pejorative terms. There are many theories, but mainly I think there are two types of theories that can help us understand how this offensiveness comes and fix with the descriptive meaning. The first one is semantic theory. Don't worry about my slide, it's too, I understand it's rather choppy. The semantic theory means that it's the idea which says that the meaning of the term is the reference of the term. It's just, if I said a glass, there is a bottle on the table. The bottle is just the reference there. There's that thing, the fact there, which correspond to the term. And this fact determine the truth, the meaning of the term. Now, in semantic theory can help us understand that pejoratives is offensive just because, okay, there is the part of the fact and also there is a part of the offensive-ness that is already in here in the term. But how is in here in the term? It is in here in the term just because you have to assume that you are using the same language and under the same context of cultural context. So like dojin, if you are in the context of Japanese language and learn a lot about how people react to the people from Okinawa, I think you will just immediately understand the meaning of dojin. So it's like in Thailand also, if you use Thai language and you learn a lot about culture here, I think if some people express the term like curry, which is like slut, you would feel immediately that is so offensive. So there is no explanation here, more than this. So it means that the offensiveness is already there. It's already fixed with the term. It comes with the fact, with the descriptive meaning. Now, so that is the semantic theory, which I think can help us understand. But also you need another theory, which is called pragmatic theory. Now, to understand that pejoratives works, you need to think of it like an indexical term. Indexical terms means the terms which just index to things. For example, I, here, now, I, here, I here, we are here right now, and this moment. These are indexical terms. When you use this term, it refers to to the object of reference directly. Pejoratives function like that. It just immediately refers to the object of reference. Now, the important thing is this, that in using pejoratives, there is the action-oriented. Now, to understand the action-oriented aspect, we need to use the pragmatic theory to give an explanation about this action-oriented. Pragmatic theory treats language as speech. Speech means communicative. It's something to do with performative. This is from J.R. Austin's work on speech act theory. And it's something to do with the way speaker and listeners interact with each other. Now, when you express a term like a slur, the term like curry, you are doing something which harm, which is like you are now victimized, the object of your reference. You are now attacking the dignity of that person. This is what you are now doing. That is a performative part of the slur or the pejorative term that are used in hate speech. So these are the main idea of my theory, the theory that I'm proposing, that is called direct reference theory of pejoratives. It doesn't move my slide. Okay, but that is just the main idea. Yeah. But there is one key point which I need to emphasize. Now, the problem is this theory can help us understand how the offensiveness can be preserved and also can be destroyed, because we need to understand that the slur, the pejorative that are used in hate speech is quite like imaginary term. They are just like fictional terms, Why? Because there is, which I said that the claim of this theory is quite paradoxical. The first one is something to do with truth condition, with the direct reference of the term. It concerns the action-oriented, but the reference itself is empty. There is nothing as such like being slut or, or faggot or all these things. These are just things that was created by a group from one ideology or moral values and use it against another group. So it's just something which is created. So it's like fictional truth. It's just like unicorn. We create the term unicorn and then we talk about it, we use it, but there is nothing as such like a unicorn there. So the truth, to understand the sentence containing pejoratives that are used in hate speech, we need to understand it as like fictional truth. It doesn't exist, it's just our imagination. People just use it just to to control behavior of people whom they don't agree with the moral value or whatever. So I think this is very important for understanding the offensiveness, that even though there is the offensiveness there, but nothing there for us to really grasp. However, there is what I called intentional content. Of course, people who create these terms, they intentionally create it. So the term like slurs, all these slurs are not meaningless. They have meaning, of course, because it is intentionally created by a group against another group. So I think the good theory should have these two components. The first one concerns the indexical component. We need to raise the point that when we talk about hate speech, of course, there's something to do with reference and something to do with the immediacy, you know, the reference which is immediate, direct reference, and also concern the action-oriented, and also something to do with the empty reference or the fictional concept of these offensive terms. Okay, so these are all my, I try to summarize, make it easy as much as I can. I don't think this can help. Okay. It's too complicated. Yeah. I mean, in my paper, I just try to talk about some other theories, and then I raise my objections to other theories, and then I propose my own theory here. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Achang Kanit. It's inspiring and interesting. Thank you very much for your, how do I put this, academic, theoretically elaborated analysis of hate speech. It's interesting to know that the meaning of hate speech is created by imagination and it's action oriented. Interesting. Thank you so much. Now, I wonder if people have some questions on the talk of Achang Kanit. Yes, Professor Santon, please go ahead.
Let me ask a question, please. In your last slide, there is two kinds of something action-oriented and truth-oriented. Yes, in our Myanmar saying, there is we need some something effective orientation. It is something when we speak something meaningful statements. We need something not only true but also something effective for the benefit of others. So I would like to something. Is there anything to express the effective of something benefit oriented to the others? This is something I would like to know.
Probably, can you say it again, the question?
The question is, what I would like to know is that in your last slide, you mentioned one is truth-oriented and another one is action-oriented. Yes, yes, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I would like to know, in our Myanmar sayings, to become something not only truth and action, but also something effective for the benefit of others. It is what my idea is something to express effective oriented or something benefit oriented for the others. This is something my idea. Is it something you? What I would like to question is something. Is there any idea for you?
If Myanmar said something like what?
It is something not only truth oriented but also effective oriented. The effective means something the benefit for others.
Mm-hmm.
When we express our speaking, maybe it may be hate speak or good speak or bad speak. Something we need to not only truth but also something effective or something.
Oh, you mean okay? So you mean that there is a case where people use the term which is truth oriented and action oriented but you wonder whether this is a hate speech or not?
Yes, but maybe there's another oriented. What I want to mean, another oriented. Is there any another oriented to begin a kind of speech?
What is that? Okay, Bilen helps me clarify your question. That do you mean that there is another orientation?
Yes, right.
The first one, yes, truth oriented. The second one, action oriented. The third one maybe is sort of imaginary oriented.
Maybe. Thank you.
It's something to do with imagination.
Okay, thank you.
It sounds like a magical thinking in a fallacy theory. Okay, thank you so much. Now we move on to next talk. Professor Dr. Santan from Myanmar is talking about the relation between hate speech and power politics. Professor Santan, go ahead, please.
Hello, good afternoon. I hear my song. Okay. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to Professor Taro Sensei and Balen from the Asia Center. My paper is hate speech in Myanmar related into power politics. Okay. And next slide, how to do? Okay. In our Myanmar language, the word Lumyocha, that means different race, not Myanmar nationalities, and Badacha, different religions, not Buddhist, hate speech. In 1990, the general election was held, and it was the first multi-party election since 1962, after which the country has been ruled by military dictatorship. In 1990, the election was won by NLD, National League for Democracy. However, the military junta refused to recognize the result. After election, the so-called nationalists, it is backed by the military junta, had been making hate speech against Aung San Suu Kyi, leader of the NLD, for her husband is Lumyocha and NLD is leader of Badacha. Before 1990 general election, there were no hate speech in our Myanmar. So this is why I raised the question, is hate speech in Myanmar related into power politics? First of all, I'd like to present the relation between philosophy of self and other and making hate speech. In Western philosophy, Hegel said the concept of self needs the existence of the concept of the other. And concept of other as a constituent part of self-consciousness and self-awareness. And Jambo said that applied the dialectic of intersubjectivity to describe how the world is altered by the appearance of the other. And Husserl, he said the other is being a perception of the consciousness of the self. And Levinas, the philosopher of ethics, prefers to think the philosophy as the wisdom of love rather than the love of wisdom. That means that responsibility toward others precedes any objective searching after the truth. Levinas derived the premise of his ethics from the experience of the encounter with the other. And Heidegger, he said that man is always defining his nature by means of his decision that he is not a self made of the properties, but a being constituted a possibility. For this reason, man as a social self and a political self, one needs understanding of existence of others and their possibilities, and to have wisdom or love and love of wisdom that can make free from hate speech against the other. Then I would like to present about the relation between Eastern philosophy and making hate speech. And in Chinese philosophy, Confucius' social philosophy largely revolves around the concept of ren, compassion, loving others. And in Japanese philosophy, Wasuji refers to betweenness, aidakara. It means that nothing is hidden between self and other, so far as one is capable of awareness, one's existence is true and through the open to participation of the other. It is the abandonment of the self as independent which paved the way for non-dual relation between the self and others. In this way, there's ethics of humanity, and benevolence is the development of the capacity of embrace others as oneself, and then there will be free from hate speech against others. And then in Myanmar, tailored by the Buddhist philosophy, knowing self and other was made up of action of mind and body, led by certain intention is enlightenment and wisdom. For a Myanmar Buddhist philosopher, thinking, feeling, and willing are reality of mental phenomena constituted in consciousness with sedana or intention as the leading reality of mental phenomena to awaken good speech as well as hate speech. In Myanmar philosophy, it can be said that know your sedana intention, and to be is to know sedana intention to the others. It means that to know whether our intention to other is to express hate speech or not. We can say that knowing other is wisdom of mental cultivation through sedana intention, associated with loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, equanimity. This is a way of living by sedana ethics to be free from hate speech. Then I would like to present about a brief study of the history of Myanmar political movement. Myanmar was early known as Burma and was a British colony, and Aung San Suu Kyi's father was a leader during the strike by university students in 1936. He was founder of Burma Independent Army. He is a national leader for independence of Burma, and before independence, he became a politician, and he was assassinated in July 1947. Then Burma became independent on 4th January 1948, and U Nu, a university student leader and politician, became its prime minister. In March 1962, General Ne Win, the head of the armed forces, coup and seized power, and his revolutionary council declared the Burmese way to socialism. Since 1962, there were many strikes by university students and factory workers. Ne Win retaliated brutally the leaders of strike. In 1987, Burma applied the status of least developed country to gain relief from its burden of foreign debt, and there were strikes followed by student demonstration against the government in March 1988. Aung San Suu Kyi, in her first public appearance in 26 August in 1988, pleads support to the movement for democracy and termed it as the second struggle for independence. This is where the first shared her ideas of philosophy and non-violence. On 8 August 1988, the pro-democracy protests were held in Yangon. This is well known in Burmese history as the 4-8 democracy movement, 88, based on the date 8 August 1988. However, the army, locally known as Tamaro, retaliated brutally, and there was a mass raid. The military seized power on 18 September 1988. The military regime promised to hold multi-party election and even allow political parties to be founded. Aung San Suu Kyi founded the National League for Democracy, NLD, on 27 December 1988. In June 1989, she was put under house arrest. Elections were held in May 1990. The NLD won over 80% of the seats contested. These results were, however, declared null and void. After elections in 1990, the so-called nationalist group, military region alliance base, was making hate speech against Aung San Suu Kyi, for her husband is Lu Myo Cha, different race, not Myanmar nationality, and NLD is made by Bada Cha, different religion, not Buddhist, to oppose NLD and to make violence and discrimination. In the newspaper controlled by military region, many hate speech articles against for Aung San Suu Kyi and NLD are expressed. In fact, before 1990 general election, there were no hate speech and no conflict between different races and religions in Myanmar. This is why I raised the question, is hate speech in Myanmar related into power politics? In 1993, the military region convened a national convention with the help of a few hand-picked delegates. The year 2007, Buddhist monks joined the protests in the large numbers, giving it the name Saffron Revolution. They marched and chanted the Metta Sutra, Loving Kindness Sutra, as non-violent nationalist movement for democracy. In Myanmar Buddhist culture, political
Professor Santang, I don't hear you.
Yes, okay. Okay.
Okay, now I hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. In Myanmar Buddhist culture, political participation is a kind of good action of social welfare. In May 2008, the new constitution was approved in the referendum. And that in and next slide. Next slide. Hello. Okay. In June 1989, the Aung San Suu Kyi was put under house arrest and military regime declared the 14th general election on 7 November 2010 in accordance with the provision of the new constitution. However, the NLD wiped out the election. And then Union Solidarity and Development Party, USDP, a proxy of the military junta, won the election. Aung San Suu Kyi was released from house arrest on 13 November, right after election. In 2011, the military junta was officially dissolved and civilian government led by Thein Sein, who headed the USDP, came to power. He met her in August 2011 and tried to convince her and her party at the NLD to rejoin the political process. As a result, the NLD was re-registered. It participated in the election held on 1st April 2012. The NLD won the election empathetically and Aung San Suu Kyi became the leader of the opposition. In 2015, general election of NLD won the landslide victory. She became state councillor of Myanmar. Then I would like to present about the political philosophy of Aung San Suu Kyi, that it may be one of the solutions of the hate speech. Aung San Suu Kyi applying philosophy of non-violence in a struggle for democracy. Like Mahatma Gandhi, the leader of the Indian, she adopts the non-violent civil disobedience as a matter of principle. And from Buddhism, she practices meditation, especially Vipassana meditation, and use it as a weapon in the struggle for freedom from fear. political philosophy of Aung San Suu Kyi based on two concepts, metta, loving kindness, and desa, truth. Some critics attack her conception of metta and desa, that it is not a critical politics. But in 1996, when she met with a prominent monk named Tamya Sayadaw, famous for creating a zone of peace in the midst of conflict in eastern Kayan state, by applying his metta and desa, she remarked that politics is about people. And Tamya Sayadaw proved that love and truth can move people more strongly any form of cohesion. Then she said in the interview that hate and fear go hand in hand, and then truth and reconciliation go together. This means that hate speech came out of the fear for losing political power. Saying truth makes reconciliation and free from hate speech, fake news, and misleading information. In conclusion, in Myanmar, the hate speech and fake news in the case of Meitila and Mandalay region is an example. Before the 2015 election, hate speech and fake news were spreading between religious communities in the town where there was an outbreak of communal violence in 2013. It was credited with a rise of the support for the USDP, the proxy party of the military junta, which took a seat for NLD in Meitila in 2015. In coming November 2020, there will be an election in Myanmar. So most of Myanmar people are worried about hate speech by so-called nationalists that the alliance junta, military junta, they will make violence for negative impact for ruling party NLD. Some political analysts fear that the USDP may appeal to race and religion by making hate speech and attempt to lure voters away from the NLD in 2020. For the aim and objective of USDP is to fire up its military alliance base, which is prone to nationalism. There is making hate speech against Aung San Suu Kyi. For some members of NLD are Muslim. It is a kind of hate speech that merely is called La Muslim Party, which means man of Lumyocha, different race, not Myanmar nationality, and Badacha, different religion, not Buddhist party. Aung San Suu Kyi is called Kalama, female Kala, as a kind of hate speech. In Myanmar and elsewhere, like fake news and hate speech can be transmitted down from the top through the Facebook. There are 8 million Facebook users in 2015, but now there are 80 million to 20 million. This can make for a much higher value for fake news and hate speech in 2020. Frontier Myanmar, a community based on independent journalism in Myanmar, expressed that with widespread disrupt the international media and hostility toward foreign interference, Myanmar has begun to resemble an information bubble. As it turns inward, fear and nationalism take hold and can easily be exploited by election candidates. There is reason to fear the campaigning for the 2020 election will be especially nauseous. So I will conclude that for philosophical perspective of hate speech, we should realize the principle of conditionality, that every phenomenon is conditional. This is the principle of cause and effect called Yidama Hedupabo in Myanmar philosophy. Making hate speech is a cause of bad sedana, bad intention. So that it is called sedana intention for making hate speech. So this can be explained by a conditional relation of logical form. If there is sedana intention for making hate speech against Aung San Suu Kyi and NLD, then they will be doing hate speech. So this is, in this way, the question is raised that, is hate speech in Myanmar related into power politics? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Santan. Yeah, I think you're right to claim that hate speech is the mirror of hierarchical power relation between the self and the other. And I'm also interested in the concept of Sitana in Myanmar philosophy, and interesting to know that the Sitana is somehow related to hate speech as well. Thank you. Now, do you have any questions? I'm also happy to have some questions from the audience. No questions? So if you don't have any questions, I'd like to move on. So today's last speaker is Professor Toru Oga from Kyushu University, Japan. Nice to meet you, Professor Oga. I'm very happy to be able to work with you in this panel. So go ahead, please, Professor Toru Oga.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. Just a moment. Okay, thank you very much. My name is Toru Oga, the associate professor in the Kyushu University, and my research field is international relations. And thanks again for the Asian Center to invite me, and also thanks a lot Professor Mochizuki to include me in a panel. So my research is a survey-based research, and I focus on the practice of the Japanese hate speech in the political and historical context. The characteristics of the Japanese hate speech is too much concentrated on the people in the Korea and the Korean and the Chinese they're living in Japan, and rather than other ethnicities. And by the survey analysis, I'd like to uncover and make sure that those factors of the Japanese hate speech. Okay. I'd like to explain some background the hate speech in Japan. The hate speech law adopted in 2016. Yet hate speech continued to spread because there are no concrete definition of the hate speech and penalties, and the legal enforcement was very weak. This picture is the just crazy slogan of the ultra-racist organization, the saying they kill Koreans or something. And the Japan racism and xenophobia have taken in the form of historical revisionism, especially by attacking Koreans and Chinese. So then my research they try to demonstrate that this thesis, by the data analysis, they concentrated on the Korea and the China, and strongly related to the political and historical context. Okay, the objective of this research is combining the survey data analysis. That this paper examined how Japanese hate speech has related to the political and historical concept. And so my research question is that what are the key factors of the Japanese xenophobia and Japanese hate speech, and how the Japanese xenophobia and hate speech related with the political issues. And in this research, I set on the 3 political issues: the acceptance of the foreign workers and the comfort of women issues, and the North Korean, the nuclear weapons, the experiment. Okay, this is a survey design. This survey takes place in the 2 years ago. In the March in the 2018, and this is the web surveys, and so the number of the respondents is over 2,000. Okay. The firstly, the factor analysis. This is a factor analysis is the we call the neto uyo. This is the right-wing people in internet. This chart explains how their ideologies is related to their actions. And the people answered the Japanese first, relating to the against the attitudes to the foreigners, and also if they answered the hate media and the hate liberals, those kind of people related to the statement that such as the right-wing group is controlled by the foreign countries, and the left-wing people is pro-Korean or something. Okay, and the other chart is the case of xenophobia. Okay, there are two cases: the xenophobia to Asia and the xenophobia to outside Asia. In the case of xenophobia to Asia, they are concentrated to the China and Korea. But in the xenophobia to the outside Asia, is the variety they spread the U.S., Southeast Asia, and Latin America, and even Southeast Asia is located in the Asia, but in Japan, the people feel xenophobia to Asia that doesn't relate to the xenophobia to the Southeast Asia. The Asian xenophobia are too much concentrated on the China and Korea. Okay, and the next slide. Okay, the next slide is the multinomial logic analysis to the firstly the net right-wing people. Okay, in this chart, the firstly we asked the simple political questions first, and then we classified respondents into the international relations framework, the realism, liberalism, and the constructivism. And this chart explains the people with the hate liberals, they're corresponding to the negative attitude to the comfort women issues, the North Korean issues, and foreign worker issues. And okay, the next slide is the people in the xenophobia. So the xenophobia to the Asia, they're related to the negative reaction to those three issues: the comfort women, the North Korea, and the foreign worker issues. And the xenophobia to outside Asia is not negative attitude to the such as comfort women issues and the North Korean issues, and only some negative attitude to the foreign worker issues. So by summarizing this, we have two tendencies of the xenophobia to Asia and xenophobia to outside Asia. And the xenophobia to the Asia is extremely concentrated to xenophobia against the Chinese and the Korean peoples. And even those kind of the Chinese and the Korean xenophobia that related to the negative attitude to the comfort women issues and the North Korean issues and the acceptance of the foreign workers issues. Okay, and there are three text answers in the questionnaire. Okay, firstly, in the case of the foreign workers, those texts includes the "I'm afraid of the foreigners," of the quitting job, changing job is not going well, and they start committing crimes or something. So for example, I don't like foreigners very much, and the more foreigners, the worse the security. And this kind of tendency, the xenophobia to the foreign workers, is somewhat common in the other countries, in the United States or something. So if the many foreigner is coming to the countries, the crime is increased, and it is the unstable to the social order or something. But in the case of the North Korean issues, for example, the one respondent answers the North Korea is the terrorist and the barbarian states involved in the abduction of the Japanese people, and any sanction are permissible, and even the military action is inevitable, because the North Korean state and the North Korean government is not negotiable. Okay, and the most important issues is the comfort women issues. That their hate is much escalated in the issues of the comfort women. The respondent answers include that they're crazy and what the Korean country is a strong jealousy toward Japan, and the countries that never change forever. So actually that they can negotiate with the Korean countries, and that they speak a lot of justification, but in the end they're just working for the money or something. And those comfort women issues are the major source of Japanese hate speech to the Koreans. So finally, the conclusion that there are the several remarks in the survey research. The firstly, the Japanese xenophobia to Asian peoples is concentrated to the China and the Korea. And secondly, the people feel Japanese first, and the xenophobia are the match. And also the people hate liberals and hate Korea is a match. And also if they are dealing with anti-liberal attitude, and it is also corresponding the strongly matched with opposition to the foreign immigrants and the negative view of the comfort women issues and hate North Korea. And similar tendency is founded. The Japan's xenophobia toward Asia that is characterized by opposition to the foreign immigrant and a negative attitude to the conflict women issues and hating the North Korea. So the Japanese hate speech, in conclusion, the Japanese hate speech and xenophobia is not just the hating different ethnicity and the not just hating the foreign countries' people, but it is based on the political and historical context and the extremely concentrating on the Korean and the Chinese hate. So the survey research demonstrated the Japanese hate speech concentrated on Korea and the Chinese people, and other factors of the hate speech. It is also concentrated on the political and historical context. Okay, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Professor Toru Oga. Now, I wonder if people have any questions.
So can I jump in and ask a question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you for the interesting research. So showing us an interesting research. So yeah, could you say a bit about how the survey works? And so you recruited people through a service and on the internet, so they just answer a set of survey questions on the internet, and then so one particular thing is how did you measure the anti-liberal or hate liberal tendencies? So were there like a set of questions asking about liberals, and then they answered in like, on the scale of 1 through 7, I like it, neutral, I don't like it, kind of thing, or?
Okay. This website survey is conducted on the Rakuten Insight, the web survey, and the registered panels and over the 2,300, and the number of respondents is 2025. And I've set up the political question and ideological question. And for example, we have a question. Do you feel xenophobia to the Asia, and do you feel the xenophobia to outside Asia? And in this question, we have the 7 frames from 1 to 7, and just a moment. This kind of questions, the respondents, we pose these sentences to the respondent, and the question is which sentence that you feel the strongly agrees, and if people agree strong attitude against foreigners, they check this and like this. Yeah, this is a way of survey.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, got it.
Thank you for your question. Yeah.
Do you also know the attributes of the respondents? So like their ages, their sexes, and their levels of education, etc. Did you find like anything? Because so what I found almost like baffling was some of the free comments were so explicit and very hateful, right? So they, of course, I think they are answering them anonymously, but still they know that like somebody's gonna read their answers, but still like they are just typing like on the random internet board, right? So I was surprised at how honest, in a sense, they were answering or writing comments against South Korea, for instance. So,
it is a difficult question, but this is anonymous answers. The one thing is this is the registered people in the Rakuten Insight. So maybe compared with the SNS anonymous anonymous posts, that they comparatively it is comparatively honest. But the compared with the real name posts and real name the questionnaires, it is the comparatively the not honest posts. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Okay. Thank you for your question and answer.
I have more questions.
Yes, please.
Thank you for your talk. I was wondering two things. The first is concerning the methodology. I just noticed that the period of your survey is just only 5 days, is it? March from 1 to 5?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's right.
in terms of
That's
methodology, is it, I mean, convincing enough to conclude as your findings? I mean, is it not too short, the time? And why you choose only these 5 days in March? That's the first question. The second one is, I was wondering about the answer of the people who answer questions. Do they use particular hate speech or slurs or pejorative terms, or they just, you know, express their opinion like a description, which is like hostile attitudes, only that? And how would you classify this as hate speech? Because it's just hostile attitude. There is nothing like, you know, derogatory there. How would you say that this is hate speech? So what is the criteria of judging that this is hate speech?
Actually, to answer the second question, the both kind of things is included. The particular hate word in the hate speech, and also they just express the hatred to those the foreigners. And actually, we classify the 5 levels of the hate speech. So so to answer your question, we include all. And in this presentation, I just show the typical answers of each categories. And the first question is the survey date is just 5 days. But I don't think it is a problem, because it's not conducting research by myself, but this is conducting research to the web companies. And so it's I make the survey designs, the web companies, and doing the questions, the registers, the respondents. Therefore, the 5 days is enough. Okay, that's all to my answer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your question and answer. Now, we are now running out of time, and I'd like to extend my gratitude to the speakers of today's panel. And yeah, I think that the practice of hate speech is so closely related to national and international politics, as well as geopolitics, that we cannot understand what hate speech is without background knowledge of those hate speeches. And it's also true that hate speech has some kind of universal structure which we can approach and clarify through philosophical investigation, theoretically as well. So it's now time to close the panel. It's 3:30 Bangkok time, right? So thank you again for the speakers, for your talk, to the speakers and to the audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Professor Taro. And also thank you to the rest of the speakers. Very interesting variety of topics, very philosophical to very specific hate speech in Japan and also in Myanmar. So thank you all. We're also now hereby closing the sort of the day part, the afternoon session here at Thammasat. So thank you all for coming and for all your contributions. Obviously, this is not the end of the conference. We are continuing at Asia Center. We are now making our way to Asia Center, and we're continuing tonight with our next panel from Internews. And obviously for the next 2 days, we have a variety of sessions planned out, of which we hope that you will also be part of. Yeah, so we will see you at the next session.